Hey. Tuesday
Is that your new thing? The hey,
in the
hey,
house.
hey, 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 hey,
I don't,
hey, hey.
I don't know how to do it. There's always a moment of weird uncertainty.
I like to think of it as sheer panic because it's a live show.
Well, look, it's a mixed bag of panic because I wonder who's actually listening and who's actually watching. But then I realize we can't care right now. We just started, so we still have to get better at this. So I can't. I have to pretend like thousands are watching and listening.
They are.
So that's what I do. Hey, Matt, this is Business Pants. You're Matt Mascardi. I'm Damion Rollis. We are Free Float Media. We endeavor to bring you the daily, financial news, business news, market news, ESG news,
The
sustainability
news,
news.
we
Make the world
bring
better
all the
news.
news.
Yeah, so we're, as far as I know, we are the one of a kind, the only ESG daily, sustainable investing, good things happening news program in existence. We're it. This is it.
You get it here first, and that's a really
No,
sad.
really.
That's a really sad reality.
So deal with it, people. You want to get at it? You want to just go for
Let's
it?
go.
Tuesday, December 10, 21 days left in the decade. Here we go. Today we're going to update some of our favorite war stories. We're calling them the variety wars, but just some updates. We're also going to continue our decade series, because there is a new decade coming. The roaring 20s are headed our way. Today we're going to talk about the boring 10s. And then finally, Matt's going to make something, because Matt always makes something. His segment, Matt Makes, end of every show.
I do. I make a lot of things, and today I'm making several things actually. So strap yourself in.
And just so you know, the stuff that Matt makes at the end it's invariably brilliant. Could be its own show, really, which I hint at him about a lot. But we do it here for you daily. So yeah.
It's like me. It's like writing a research paper of snark every single day.
But fact-based.
Fact-based snark.
Fact-based. All done with actual stats and research and data and all that crap. So let's get at it, man.
All right, let's get at it.
Okay, I'm going to quickly update some of our favorite skirmishes, Matt. And I want you to try to create some kind of cohesive narrative out of these scraps.
A challenge,
meatball.
An early show challenge.
Think of it as a meatball. Think about that uncomfortable feeling you get when you put your hands in that cold meat and you mix it up with the breadcrumbs and the egg.
I only use plant-based meat for my meatballs.
And I know you don't listen to me, so I know you have time to make a slide while I'm talking. So you're going to create the narrative. I'm going to give you the headlines. Ready?
All right.
7 minutes on the clock. Here we go. Amazon has gone to court to accuse President Trump of using improper pressure on the Pentagon to harm Amazon CEO Uncle Jeff Bezos, whom Trump loves to publicly hate on. The pressure was intended to divert a multi-billion-dollar cloud computing contract to rival Microsoft, according to Amazon. Amazon, which has the country's largest cloud computing provider, Amazon Web Services, had been considered the frontrunner for the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure project known as JEDI. So you get it, right? Bezos is pissed at Trump there.
All right. Seems angry. Okay.
Yeah, next. And our CEO, Dennis Muhlenberg, still has his job. Watch. A former senior manager at Boeing will be testifying before Congress tomorrow about the concerns he had with the production of the 737 MAX airplane. 4 months before the first of two deadly crashes, Ed Pearson said he was worried that the plane was riddled with production problems and potentially unsafe. For the first time in my life, he said, I'm sorry to say that I'm hesitant about putting my family on a Boeing airplane.
So
right?
Let me just project future headline. Ed Pearson no longer with Boeing. Dennis Muhlenberg still CEO.
Yeah. Next, speaking of the U.S. Congress, TikTok CEO Alex Zhu has canceled his meetings with U.S. lawmakers and will reportedly hold meetings with lawmakers after the holidays, but who knows? He might keep avoiding.
You want me to string all this stuff together? Keep going. There's more,
Keep
right?
listening. Keep listening. Yeah, 3 more. Speaking of the U.S. Congress once again, Johnson & Johnson CEO Alex Gorski has decided not to appear at a U.S. congressional hearing on the safety of the company's baby powder and other talc-based cosmetics after reports of asbestos in the baby powder. And only a year after a jury issued a $5 billion verdict in favor of 22 women who sued over allegations their ovarian cancers were caused by Johnson & Johnson powders. So he's avoiding Congress there, Johnson & Johnson CEO. Next, one week after a seismic leadership shift, Alphabet is expanding its board of directors to include acclaimed biologist Frances Arnold, Ms. Arnold, who won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry and is a professor of chemical engineering, bioengineering, and biochemistry, becomes the third woman on Alphabet's board.
All it took was a Nobel Prize, ladies.
Yeah, right. I hate to laugh at that, but it's
psychotic.
Right, Ed Liddy? You listening, Ed Liddy?
Ed Liddy's on 3 boards celebrating his double diamond, single emerald anniversary. 0 Nobel Prizes.
Not only is she professor at probably one of the top 5 greatest universities in the friggin' world, but she has a Nobel Prize. Finally, Saudi Aramco will exercise its 15% green shoe option, whatever the hell that is, potentially raising the oil giant's valuation to $29.4 billion, the largest IPO ever, beating Alibaba's $25 billion. So Aramco will publish its initial share price today and will list tomorrow on the Saudi Stock Exchange. So I'm done.
All right. That is a lot of stuff going on all at one time.
Here, business pants.
Okay.
We tell you stuff.
But here's what I think you're trying to say, because there's
narrative.
It feels like 20 different things, right? But I sort of hear maybe one underlying thing.
All right.
It's sort of like we're in this massive corporate empowerment-y, pushback-y, whiny thing going on.
All right.
Okay. So stay with me. If we think of the Amazon story, what is the Amazon story where they don't win cloud computing except Amazon saying, well, we didn't win, and unhappy about the process? Now, they may have actually a really legitimate case for why they should have won. But it is this kind of like entitly, we should win, angry corporate story. It's like basically everyone's taking their dicks out. Sort of feels like that.
It does feel a little bit like get over it, you can't win them all kind of a vibe.
Boeing feels like a little. It's not like a dick war so much as it is. How does Dennis Muhlenberg still have a job? Right, like every time I see that story, like anyone talks about Boeing, all I can think is that guy's got a job. That feels like the ultimate in chummy, corporate-y stuff. TikTok is the desperate fear of foreign invaders, which the U.S. companies. I mean, there was a story about Apple worried about their employees going to flee to China, the ones that they let go. Right, like it's like. Corporates are basically using China as a boogeyman. Facebook and Zuckerberg did the same thing. Johnson & Johnson is just saying, no, we won't show up to Congress because we don't care, right? Like not that they don't care about the victims so much.
He talks to everybody else. I think he was on Mad Money recently. He likes to talk, but just not when he's under oath.
So here's the way I'd frame this whole conversation, this wars conversation. Feels like, how many boogeymen can a corporation come up with to blame everything on that they suck at or are afraid of?
Yeah, it's kind of like hey, look at that as I run over here.
I mean, it's like Aramco's even kind of it's going to be the biggest IPO, and investors are willing to chuck cash at it. And I'm sure everyone, like, if you're an oil and gas company, you're like, what the hell, man? Like we're like rushing into natural gas because you want us to diversify because of climate change, and you're going to pour $29 billion into 23% stake of a fake public company, a foreign fake public company, no less. Like, I feel like everybody's a boogeyman at this point. That's where I'm at with this. It
Age of the
is
boogeyman.
it is corporate
Well,
boogeymanism
in the age of
and
rising
entitleism. I don't know.
in the age of rising populism, it's the perfect time for boogeymen, right?
Ooh, corporate populism.
It's the perfect time for it.
I
All
like
right,
that.
good. I like that meatball. Good narrative meatball, Matt.
Good narrative, plant-based meatball.
Right on clock. Right on clock. All right. Let's keep going. Let's stay on target. Whatever that means. For our future advertisers, I want you to know that we can stay on time, okay?
Can we though?
If nothing else. All right, let's continue our decade series. What are we calling this? Do we have a name for this? Did you create a card?
The title card is Boring Tens Rehashed.
Boring. And was it really that boring?
I don't
You
know
found
if it was
you found
boring.
It boring?
I mean, I had a kid in 2011, our oldest. So I
Yeah.
basically, every day I wake up, I don't remember what happened in the tens.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I want to present to you a list of the top 10 business trends that define the 2010s, which I hate saying.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of tens.
I want you to tell me what you think. Which of these do you think might die or have already died in the 10s, and which do you think will continue to be relevant in the 20s, or you can ignore them, or whatever you want. This is what I got for you today, though. You ready?
I'm ready.
Top 10 business trends that define the 2010s. This is I don't think this order really matters, so I'm just going to go through it. Number 1, the explosive growth of big tech. I mean, obviously, we do talk about that a lot here.
The first iPad we talked about yesterday was 2010, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I think more importantly, I think when they say big tech, they just mean these data vacuum companies, right? These data
like
scientists,
Dyson,
right? Yeah. I can't even afford a Dyson, so don't joke. All right, so that's number 1. Obviously, that's not going away.
It's not going away. I think that story should actually be the rise of dual class shares, not the rise of tech.
All right. Well, okay. Well, I don't think this article writer is that nuanced, but that's what we're here for. Number 2, smartphones, apps, and internet everywhere. So I'm guessing that kind of goes with the explosion and growth of big tech.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds
right.
like one thing so far.
Here's a good one. We could chat about this for a second. So it's new ways of working, including job jumping, gig economy, flex benefits, the ease at which people can create startups like us idiots here at Free Float Media, remote working, also us idiots. So, what will there any ideas about even newer ways of working coming in the 2020s, Matt? Like, what's next?
Oh, the newest way to work is not have a job because a robot has it.
So, but what is that? What's the new way there?
It's the no gig economy.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I wonder, the gig economy, the sort of new way, remote employees. I remember when Melissa Mayer at Yahoo, Marissa Mayer at Yahoo made that big announcement that there would be no more remote workers for Yahoo. Do you remember that? That was maybe 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And it happened in the 10s. I remember it because at the time, everyone was outraged that she was sort of flaunting the modern convention. But
yeah, they were also outraged because she was also building like a $100,000 daycare for herself, right? As she was telling people they couldn't work from home anymore.
Yeah.
Wasn't she building a daycare in her office?
Yeah, it wasn't a good look. But regardless of that, it does. I can't tell who the winner of like the new modern labor movement is. Do you feel like employees won that, or do you? I mean, it doesn't feel like, flex feels like the thing that people ask for, but it's been used to actually remove benefits, to actually give no stability to people's work situations. There's no more pensions. There's no defined benefit.
This is why you'd think all these people would be pro Bernie and pro Warren, because they're the only ones who have a plan to take care of these people.
I mean, politics aside, right? Like, I don't know that labor won that. I don't think labor won the 10s. I think it's actually, you pointed this out, it's the step towards automation. It makes it easier to get rid of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all a big case study. But here's one thing we definitely do know: 2020's big tech labor. That's goddamn important. It's got to be.
Yes.
All right, number 4, emerging middle classes in Asia. Right.
Yeah.
number 10. Number 5, business trends that define the
Well,
2010s. Number 5, populism and nationalism reemerge. We just talked about
well,
corporate
those two things
populism.
kind of link, right? Like, because every corporation, the irony of the first segment today of talking about sort of like the corporate foreign invader fear is that they're also desperately chasing that Asian middle class. Like,
Yeah,
that is a target
new
audience for them.
customers.
Like,
Sexy.
it's billions of customers they've never accessed before.
Look out, India. You're coming.
You're
Uh,
next.
The rise of women in business. I don't rise. That's I guess they're, yeah,
Hey,
and they're rising.
hey, do you expect more than 20% women on
That's true.
boards?
I should get over it. Number 7, the falling prices of high tech hardware.
It's
I don't know what to say
it
about
seems
that.
like 4 of these are tech.
Yeah. Another one, the rise of I don't even know what this is. SaaS business models. I think they're referring to the cloud.
No, it's
The rise of the
software
cloud.
as a service business models. It's
Okay. Oh, all right.
APIs, it's how you use
Cloudy crap.
software. It's more tech is what it is.
More tech. Number 9, increasing U.S. energy independence. So there you go, Saudi Aramco. And finally, the 10th of the top 10 business trends that define the 2010s. Number 10, the falling cost of capital. I think I'm too dumb to understand why that's important.
Well, when you keep interest rates, because there's a financial crisis, if you keep interest rates as low as possible into negative territory, yeah, the cost of capital, which is how much it costs you to borrow some money from someone, is tends to be low because all the cost of capital is kind of pegged to treasuries. It's pegged to whatever, the Federal Reserve sets rates at.
All right. That's our list. All right. I have a minute left, so I want to add a few things here. These are
Add.
just things that yeah, these are just things that caught my eye and I was either elated enough or angry enough that I had to include it. So, I'm calling this end of the decade symbolism, I guess.
Ooh.
This is like good news and bad news. All right, first the good news. Finland will now be led by young women. I shit you not. The country's new prime minister is 34-year-old Sanna Martin. The
Hmm.
new government, in fact, will consist of 12 female and 7 male ministers. So take that, whoever, Boeing, I don't know. Four of the top, four of the top 5 political parties are led by women, and they will represent a ruling coalition. And the new interior minister is a 34-year-old woman, and the new education minister is a 32-year-old woman. So yeah, there you go.
So
Let's
maybe the
let's
rise of women is real
let's clap for Finland.
in
All right,
Finland.
now the bad news. Here's what the old weird white dudes are still up to. Okay, this just drove me insane. In a serious sounding article on CNBC, the CEO of Korn Ferry, Gary Burnison. So Korn Ferry is a global consulting firm that helps companies select and hire the best talent. So this kind of scares me. This is what he admitted. He actually wrote this and shared this. After 20 years of hiring, he refuses to look at resumes that include an objective. Yeah, you heard that right. He said, while it might sound harsh, 90% of the time, I refuse to read through resumes that include an objective. All right. In other words, forget talent and education and experience. Instead, you need to predict the pet peeves of a rich 60-year-old blind with power white man if you truly want to get ahead in this world.
Wait.
Right? I mean, that is, I'm sorry, but I don't know why. It just irritated the heck out of me.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
what
just
the
waiting for the study of the percentage of female CVs with objectives at the top versus male CVs with objectives at the top, and for it to find that there's some hidden bias in the CVs. I'm sure we're gonna find that out like 2 years from now.
As a side note, I just wanted to bring this up. Back in 2016, the Wall Street Journal reported that Korn Ferry settled a lawsuit over its firing of Robert Damon, who was executive chairman of the Americas. Damon sued Korn Ferry, claiming it fired him for defending women from the abuse of CEO Gary Burnison. However, Korn Ferry said it fired Damon for allegedly using his company email address to solicit escorts and distribute photographs of naked women. But what about those damn objectives on top of the resumes, Matt? What are we gonna do about these objectives? I don't. It's just like, what are we gonna? They're terrible. All
I've
right,
never
there.
seen you so animated.
Sorry, I had to. Yeah. To throw away I mean, this is a CEO of a company admitting that he throws away resumes because he is something. It just, it bugs him. I'm sorry. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I don't know how it fits in top 10, but I'll go with it.
All right. All right. That's it. That's our decade bag.
Let me make something.
Yeah. Let's let Matt make something. I'll calm down. Get at it.
Matt's gonna make some indexes today.
Oh, wow. I don't really know what that means.
All right. So if you're a regular listener to this show, none of you,
I am.
then you know that some of our favorite topics so far in 2019 have included things like the lack of board diversity, fake public companies, founders, blowhards, CEO turnover, Boeing, chumminess, like all the things that basically encapsulate what markets happen to be.
Right. Basically what we just talked about today.
Yeah. A lot of what we talked about today, I didn't even include like foreign invaders and wars and all that kind of stuff. But as part of Matt Makes, this segment that we're due almost every day, I've basically created a lot of like lists of things, like I've got lists of fake public companies. I've defined what it is and then show you a list of it. And I just asked myself, what would happen if we turned some of these lists that I've already made into indexes? Now, an index...
Wait, hold on. Yeah, I was going to say, can you at least define index?
So an index is a basket of stocks that you can essentially invest in. And the reason why I wanted to do this, because in 2020, Free Float Media is looking to actually make your investment portfolio snarky again. It's about time that you could invest actively in the things that make humans kind of the worst and markets terrible. Okay.
All right. So some of the famous indexes, of course, S&P 500, the Dow Jones, which we talked about, right?
But why would you own the S&P 500 when you can own, for instance, the White Male Empowerment Index? Okay.
Is that not the S&P 500?
So this is an index. This actually takes all U.S. companies and skews the U.S. companies not by market cap, not by price. I basically created a basket of companies that are skewed by how probably white, and definitely male the boards are. Okay.
Perfect.
Largest allocations are for M&T Bank and CME Group. I wanted to encapsulate each one of these indexes, and there's 5 of them, and then I want you to guess which one actually outperformed in the last year. Okay.
All right. Okay. I like it.
But I wanted to let it sink in. I wrote a haiku for each index.
Okay. This is startling to me, but I'm gonna let it go. You wrote a haiku for each index
to celebrate the index that you could invest in. I think there's not enough market haikus, so.
Right.
The haiku for the White Male Empowerment Index is, "It's okay, honey. I'll let you have a turn soon. Here's a Peloton."
Look, now that it's basically legal in New England, I'm going to ask you, what the hell were you smoking when you
Well, I want to end this segment by announcing that if you have a haiku to celebrate one of these indexes, please submit it at freefloatmedia.com. You can hit us on Twitter directly at Matt Moscardi, at Damion Rollis, or at Free Float Media, because we want to set up a contest for the haikus. Well, I'll get to that, okay?
Okay.
The second index here, the Fake Public Company Index.
Right. Okay, good. Like
this
Facebook,
one's super easy, okay? These are companies that are basically 50% owned. The voting power is 50% owned by someone else. So when you invest in them, you get nothing. Except the stock going up or going down. That's all you get.
You're relinquishing your voice to a dictator.
The biggest allocations are obviously Google, Facebook, and Walmart. I actually had to cap the allocation to any single stock in this basket because Google, Facebook, and Walmart are so large compared to the others. So, there are about 205 constituents, and the haiku for this did an IPO. Thank you for your mounds of cash. Now get off my lawn.
I like it. That I like.
That's your investment haiku.
Now there's a haiku. All right,
Next, the
Yeah.
Noob CEO Index. Now,
All right.
for those of you watching on Twitch, you clearly know what a noob is. If you're not watching on Twitch, a noob is basically a newbie. It's somebody who's, not done this before. The Noob CEO Index covers the 255 companies who just got new CEOs. They're less than a year on their job, on this job.
Right.
And it's very simple. Large allocations to Intel and Wells Fargo, both of whom got new CEOs in the last year. And the haiku here is, we survived the year. The golden handshake helped, though. New jobs, am I right?
Okay. Can't believe I just laughed at a haiku. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Because everything should be done in haiku form.
This is my favorite day of 5th grade so far.
Number 4,
Yeah.
the Founder Fetish Index.
Okay, I don't know what that means.
This is because investors love to fetishize founders. And I think actually the haiku sort of celebrates this entirely. I won't even tell you how many constituents or the allocations yet. I'm going to start with the haiku.
Okay.
Oh my God, you're great. Your ideas are just so big. Can I touch your brain?
Ooh, I like it.
That's the investment philosophy behind the Founder Fetish Index.
Yeah.
There are 384 constituents. Google and Amazon lead that index. And last, and these are in no particular order, but last but not least, the Irrational Blowhard Index.
Okay.
This one takes some explaining I'm not going to do here, but effectively, analysts set price targets for companies. I took the ones where analysts love the companies regardless of whether or not they're profitable. And there are 490 constituents. The largest allocation is to Nectar Therapeutics. And the haiku here is, the stories are true. Expect the stock to blow up. Boom, 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 boom.
I don't know, that last line might be a bit of a haiku cheat, but I'm gonna allow it.
All right.
All right.
Now, we don't have to go one at a time. I actually just want you to guess.
Yeah, okay.
Of the 5, which do you think had the strongest performance?
All right, I'm gonna say no to white male. There's just no way. Fake public company, maybe because of all the Zuckies. Noob CEO, no, because maybe there's noob CEO because the company is in distress. Founder fetish. In light of Travis and Adam Newman, I don't want to support that. Irrational blowhard index. That one, that's a maybe. But I'm gonna go fake public company.
Fake public companies is Damien's choice. The real answer here, people, is the Founder Fetish Index.
Oh, okay.
Investors love founders. Fake public came in a close second. Founder Fetish Index in the last year would have been pro rata 25.8% return.
Despite the people like Adam Newman and
just eking out
Travis.
fake public companies who got 24.8% return. And the big loser here, which I think is amazing, is the Irrational Blowhard Index at 4.9% return.
Well, maybe that's why they're always tooting they're blowing that horn for
I
them,
cannot
right? They're trying to
believe
drum up business.
They are so excited. Analysts are so excited about those companies, they can't even get out of their own way.
Matt, I love this. This is we're gonna devote a section of the website to this. This is good stuff. I like this.
And in 2020, we are looking to partner with actual index providers, if at all possible, to release these indexes into the wild, so that in 2020, feel free to invest in your worst impulses, thanks to Free Float Media.
Yeah, feel free to have some fun, people.
That's our show today.
All right.
We are Free Float Media. You are Damian Rollis. I am Matt Moscardi. Thanks to our amazing team here. Please subscribe, rate us, and
do it.
Chuck us your haikus, because our next show I'm going to announce there is going to be a haiku contest. Okay?
Ooh, I like it.
Investment haikus should be a thing. We're going to make them a thing again.
All right.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Matt.
All right.
Yeah.